Hey, Shalom, Shalom, Shalom. This is Naaman with the DC Camp Branch Great Millstone. Back with another video. But first and foremost, Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahushua, Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahushua, Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahushua. Double honors once again go out to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Salutations also go out to the fellow Akim that are out there on the highways and byways consistently and also saturate the internet and other social media sites with lots of videos spreading the truth, all right, across four corners. You know those scriptures that say, well, pretty much all the bullshit that, and I'm talking about America here, that, hold on, all right, gotta reset that, sorry about that. Well, here's a prime example. This is, let's see, 7, I think it's 15. I'll start at 14. All right. It says, behold, he travaileth with iniquity and hath conceived mischief and brought forth falsehood. This is the self-proclaimed white man. This is the nation of Edom, the descendants of Jacob's brother Esau, the, again, self-proclaimed white man. All right. 15, he made a pit and digged it and is fallen into the ditch which he made. 16, his mischief will return upon his own head, and his violent dealing shall come down upon his own pate. And that's, again, his violent dealing shall come down upon his own pate. All of these apply. But things are beginning to go very badly for these pieces of shit, these red, leprous pieces of shit. And they really can't take it. Now, we just had, what was it, yesterday we had two staff members here, so-called Jewish, all right, that were, I personally think it was a sacrifice. You know, these people are prone to do anything to generate sympathy for them, for themselves. So I wouldn't put it past them. Then they come out on the news about, well, he had just brought a ring and was going to propose, you know, that type of shit. Anyway, so this particular video, this new leader in Namibia, and for those of you, there's a connection here with the issues. This is one of the countries that they copied off of. And what I mean by that, the atrocities that were committed by Germany on these peoples, some of that they, how am I going to say this? Some of the atrocities committed by the Germans on these peoples here, they claim that the Germans committed on them, talking about the issues. All right, so we're talking about circa 1904 to around 1907, something like that, when it was really bad. At the same time, you got to understand what was going on also in Belgium with the Belgians in the Congo. Got a little tongue twisted there. All right, but let's go ahead and roll this video because she's not playing here. And this is, oh man, I was so glad to see this.
So tell me what.
Namibia's new president kicked out over 500 Americans without negotiation. Not because of war, not because of sanctions, but because they broke visa rules. And for the first time, someone enforced them. Her name is Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah. She's the first woman to lead Namibia, and one of the few in Africa right now who's treating sovereignty like it means something. But why start her presidency like this? What else is she trying to fix or undo? Let's find out. On her first day in office, Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah did not give speeches about hope. She didn't pose for symbolic photos or thank the establishment that delivered her the presidency. Instead, she walked into the cabinet room and told her ministers that the era of comfort and silence was over. No metaphors, no handshakes, just a firm demand: deliver results or leave. For decades, Namibia's political machinery has operated on a quiet rhythm of delays, bloated bureaucracy, and loyalty over performance. Cabinets grew wider, budgets leaked into vanity projects, and positions became rewards for allegiance rather than ability. Nandine Ndaitwah didn't just recognize the rot, she attacked its structure directly. Within days, she slashed the number of ministries from 21 to 14. Entire portfolios were merged, overlapping roles were dissolved, and unnecessary offices were closed without warning. This was not administrative reform. It was a surgical cut to a government long protected by political insulation. She made it clear, no one's seat was safe and no office was permanent. It wasn't just about saving money. It was about removing the fog that had allowed inefficiency to thrive for decades. In many African governments, size is mistaken for strength. The illusion that more ministries mean more governance. Nandine Ndaitwah disagreed. For her, fewer ministries mean fewer places to hide, and the results go deeper than appearances. By dismantling old power clusters, she weakened the patronage networks that once controlled policymaking from behind the scenes. She didn't just reduce size, she cut the strings. Her message wasn't aimed at international observers. It was aimed directly at the Namibian people, many of whom have grown tired of watching leaders talk about development while hiding behind red tape and ceremonial roles. In her words, the government must now act like a servant, not a spectator. Ministers were instructed to stop hiding behind excuses of process and protocol. If roads aren't built, if electricity doesn't reach rural towns, if food prices spiral while officials attend policy workshops, then someone must answer. And she's making
Hold on.
You're still purchasing your lenses from your optometrist?
What are you doing? Come on.
then someone must answer. And she's making sure it won't be the people. And there's another layer to this reform that many outside Namibia might miss. By gutting the bureaucracy, she's making room. Room for a new kind of state, one that can pivot quickly, respond locally, and manage national wealth with fewer filters. She's not just clearing desks. She's laying the foundation for something that hasn't existed before. A lean, responsive African government that spends less time talking and more doing. Of course, this won't win her many friends inside the old elite. Already, whispers from the political class are growing louder, warnings that she's consolidating power or undermining tradition. But for her, tradition isn't sacred when it protects incompetence. And if she dismantled the old political structure in her first days, the next question becomes urgent. What exactly is she replacing it with? What does she want to build? And how far is she willing to go to do it? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. You don't tear down a government structure unless you already have a blueprint for something bigger. And Netumbo Nandine Ndaitwah didn't come to power just to trim the fat. She came to redirect the blood flow of the nation's economy. Days after disassembling Namibia's oversized political machinery, she unveiled her economic masterstroke, an 85 billion Namibian dollar investment plan, roughly $4.7 billion, focused not on slogans or short-term fixes, but on rebuilding the country's entire production base from the ground up. This was more than a stimulus package. It was a controlled detonation of economic dependency. Her administration set a measurable goal: create 250,000 new jobs by 2029. In a nation where nearly half the youth are unemployed, this isn't a lofty dream, it's a survival mandate. But what makes the plan different isn't just its ambition, it's where the money is going, and what it refuses to fund. Gone are the days of dumping funds into international conferences, symbolic partnerships, and endless development dialogues that serve donor PR more than local people. Instead, Nandine Ndaitwah is putting capital.
And that's the key issue here. Instead of helping the people. Now, that's, despite what she's doing, it hasn't gone unnoticed. She got a lot of, with if you've been paying attention there, the women military officials and stuff like that, and I had noticed the comment section. Let me get the first one here. It says, respect to this leader. I did notice she sent them back to their own country, not handcuffed and sent to a despicable prison, which would have served them right. She upheld the law in a legal fashion. Respect. Thank you, Madam President. All right. Look at this. This is what I'm talking about. Women get good things done. Madam President, you are proof of it. Here we go. Truly a queen. They were not criminals. How do you know? The response. And neither are most of the people Trump is shipping off to El Salvador. It doesn't feel good, doesn't it? Absolutely. That is a true president with ethics. They broke the law. Some countries call that a crime. Only lawbreakers, aka criminals, commit crimes, whether light crimes or hard crimes. This woman handled lawbreakers in her country with finesse. All right. Let's see. Also, their vehicles were expired. Seems unlawful. Let's see. Too bad it's all bullshit. Criminal or not, if the visa expired, that is enough for Trump to ship you out. God bless you, Madam President. Okay. Anyway, so they get into some, bullshit about, what's going on here, MS-13 and all this shit. But we'll see how long this lasts. Let's see. This character right here doesn't realize that Mexico, it says in Mexico, we now have the first female president of whom 80% of the population is very proud. Not realizing who she really is. That's sad. Let's see what the reply was. Oh boy, you're gonna get that Queen of Heaven worship bullshit. The land must not be sold to foreigners, and what's under the ground must belong to the nation, not private interests. And that's been a big thing, and that's what's scaring these colonial nations like France, the U.S., Britain, etc. I'd mentioned Belgium earlier, because the effect that the leader of Burkina Faso is having on the rest of the continent, and it's a good thing. They're saying, "No, fuck this. We're tired of being disrespected." And this too is a carryover of what Gaddafi was trying to establish. Well, at least part of it, because Gaddafi wanted to start a whole nother, in other words, break away from the petrodollar and start their own currency there, since they're so resource rich. But who was going to be opposed to that, and they had to get him up out of there. But now with this, it's not just one man. All right, so this is spreading.
Where labor lives, infrastructure, industry, and energy. The first component of her plan is hard infrastructure, not just roads for trade, but roads that reach isolated regions where the state has never been fully present. By building corridors through underdeveloped areas, she's not only enabling market access, but physically reconnecting the country. This isn't a transportation project, it's a national reintegration effort. Next comes industrial manufacturing, a sector Namibia has long neglected in favor of raw exports. Nandine Ndaitwah wants to flip that script. Her government is incentivizing local production by supporting the creation of industrial parks where Namibian companies, not foreign corporations, can process goods, assemble materials, and manufacture for both domestic and regional markets. It's a pivot that separates her from leaders who talk about economic liberation, but continue exporting raw minerals and importing.
Hello, my name is Adam Ferrari, the Chief Executive Officer of Phoenix Energy. I look forward to you.
But continue exporting raw minerals and importing finished goods. To her, Ownership begins with the ability to produce, but the boldest part of the investment plan lies in its energy transformation. Rather than cling to outdated oil dependency, she's betting big on renewables, especially green hydrogen and solar. Namibia has sunlight in abundance and space to scale. Under her plan, these resources won't remain untapped. They'll power both homes and industries, forming the backbone of Africa's clean energy future. This is also where the plan turns geopolitical. European and Asian markets are already watching closely, not just because of the energy, but because Nandine Ndaitwah is refusing to let Namibia become a cheap resource pit. Any foreign interest must now align with local benefit. In short, investors are welcome, but only if they build, hire, and train Namibians. Critics call it risky, her supporters call it overdue, but even skeptics admit one thing: it's precise. Every dollar has a role, every project a deadline. And with fewer ministries to delay execution, her government is moving fast. Of course, economic plans don't exist in a vacuum. For them to succeed, the state must have full control over the resources they depend on. And while most African leaders lease out that control to multinationals and foreign brokers, Nandine Ndaitwah took a different route, one that shocked the oil industry and sent a message to the continent. If you want to build a nation, you can't rent your wealth. You have to own it. And that's exactly what she did next. In most countries, oil discoveries come with celebration. In Namibia, they came with a warning. When international media reported that the country could soon become one of Africa's biggest oil producers, foreign investors raced in with contracts and quiet expectations. They'd seen it before. A resource-rich African state eager for partnerships, a few handshakes, and decades of extraction in exchange for minimal royalties and broken promises. But this time, something didn't go as planned. Netumbo Nandine Ndaitwah didn't just greet the news of Namibia's oil potential with pride. She responded with a seizure of authority. Her administration passed a decision that stunned even her critics. The entire oil and gas sector would now be overseen directly by the office of the president. No more ministerial loopholes, no more technocratic shielding, no more third-party discretion. From now on, Namibia's energy decisions would come straight from the top. It wasn't symbolic, it was surgical. In doing so, she closed the gates to middlemen and consultants who typically broker deals behind closed doors. She also placed herself in a position where she could personally block, approve, or rewrite any foreign agreement involving Namibian oil. And more importantly, she signaled to global markets that Namibia would no longer operate as a passive supplier of crude oil. It would demand a seat at the table as a producer, processor, and global player. To make this clear, she ordered an immediate feasibility study for a domestic oil refinery, not one owned by foreign companies, but a Namibian facility, built on Namibian soil, operated on...
How many of you, after hearing this so far, think that certain countries are plotting on her demise? What do you think?
Namibian law. The vision is simple. Oil should not leave the ground unless it leaves value behind, and that's only part of the story. While most African nations are still negotiating basic petroleum laws, Nandine Ndaitwah is moving Namibia toward a dual energy economy, one that doesn't just extract fossil fuels but simultaneously leads the continent in clean energy innovation. Her flagship? Green hydrogen. Namibia has already signed preliminary cooperation agreements with Germany and other European nations to explore green hydrogen production, the fuel of the future. But under Nandine Ndaitwah's terms, this won't be another donor-driven experiment. Instead, foreign interest must align with Namibian infrastructure, jobs, and ownership stakes.
All sounds good. I gotta admit, it all sounds good and just and righteous. But are they gonna follow through with it? Is she gonna follow through with it? All right. Because like I say, they plotting on her. Oh, we can't have this. What? Somebody that actually cares for their own people? Now, we know the history of people that came before her, that same intentions. What did they do? Patrice Lumumba, and a whole host of, even including Gaddafi. And the current, several leaders, like I said, Burkina Faso, and a few others. But we know what they did in the past. It's a damn shame. It really is. But again, it sounds good, but we'll see.
Green hydrogen isn't just energy, it's leverage, and she plans to use it. But it's not just about hydrogen. Namibia is also home to critical minerals, lithium, rare earths, graphite, the raw ingredients that power electric vehicles, smartphones, and the global tech ecosystem. In the past, these minerals were mined and shipped abroad with barely a trace left behind.
Hold on.
That ends now.
Hold on. Let me pause. I'm going to search. All right, here we go. I had to look up real quick African leaders that were assassinated. First one, of course, Patrice Lumumba, Congo. Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso. All right. Muammar Gaddafi, Samora Machel, Amilcar Cabral, Neto Angola, Cameroon, look at that. Mozambique. All right. South Africa. 1945. Damn. South Africa, another one. So there you go. And there was something else that I mentioned in passing here. Remember I talked about Namibia in the turn of the last century? Well, here you go. In Germany's exterior. Hold on, let me see if this is the first one. No, let me go back. Holocaust, 1890 to 1945. All right. And here it is in Germany's extermination program for so-called Africans. A template. What is a template? All right. Remember I told you they followed what happened to these so-called Africans here. And of course, they claimed this happened to them in Germany. Decades before the Nazis turned to the JOOs, German colonialists in Southwest Africa, now Namibia, dehumanized, built death camps for, and slaughtered tens of thousands of tribespeople in a systematic genocide. Here, Edwin Black reveals the full horrors of an eerie and odious precursor to the Shoah and its legacy in the U.S. That's another thing. When the Germans were questioned in the Nuremberg trials, it came up that much of their what they did came from how the U.S. treated us. Yeah, how about that?
That ends now. Her administration is already rewriting mining policy to require local beneficiation, meaning foreign companies must process materials inside Namibia or leave the resources untouched. No more raw exports, no more colonial-era contracts. If you want Namibian minerals, you build Namibian factories. This isn't just about economics. It's about reversing a century of resource theft disguised as development. Of course, this approach has triggered alarm bells in European investment circles. But to Nandine Ndaitwah, that discomfort is the point. Namibia will not apologize for demanding control over its wealth. It will no longer be grateful for exploitation masked as assistance. Still, reclaiming energy and mineral sovereignty is only one part of the puzzle. Because even if a nation controls what's underground, it still faces another question. Who does it allow above ground? And that's where Nandine Ndaitwah took her most controversial step, one that directly challenged the global order and put her face to face with one of the world's superpowers. Controlling your oil is one thing, but controlling who walks your soil, that's a different kind of power. It's quiet, it's personal. And for Namibia's new president, it was non-negotiable. Shortly after centralizing Namibia's energy sector, Netumbo Nandine Ndaitwah made headlines for something no African leader had dared to enforce so bluntly. She ordered the deportation of over 500 U.S. nationals for visa violations. No warnings, no diplomatic back channels, no strategic silence. They broke the law, they left. For decades, Westerners operating in Africa, whether as investors, consultants, missionaries, or advisors, have often acted under the assumption that immigration rules are for others, that overstaying a visa or working under a tourist entry wouldn't be treated as a crime, because in most cases, it wasn't, until now. Nandi Ndaitwah didn't just enforce immigration law, she weaponized it as a statement of sovereignty and reciprocity. If African citizens can be detained, humiliated, and deported abroad for the smallest documentation error, why should foreigners in Africa be treated with unspoken immunity? She called the policy simple: no visa, no stay. And it wasn't just about the United States. Her government began auditing visa compliance across the board, targeting unregistered foreign workers in mining zones, NGO staff bypassing.
So, for a patient that it's been determined you can't save their teeth, you need to
Board, targeting unregistered foreign workers in mining zones, NGO staff bypassing residency regulations, and even short-term consultants embedded in government agencies. Overnight, the landscape changed. Namibia was no longer open to informal influence. Presence now required legitimacy. This move unsettled foreign embassies. It disrupted businesses, and it triggered a subtle but visible panic among international actors who had long relied on Namibia's leniency. But for Nandi Ndaitwah, that discomfort was overdue. She was correcting an imbalance and setting a precedent. But immigration wasn't her only battle with foreign overreach. She also reached backward into the depths of Namibia's colonial history and pulled out a wound that had never truly closed. Between 1904 and 1908, German colonial forces carried out one of Africa's first attacks, unaliving tens of thousands of Ovaherero and Nama people in what is now Namibia. For years, Germany's response had been cautious, some acknowledgement, limited aid, but no full apology, no reparations, just quiet avoidance dressed up as diplomacy. Nandi Ndaitwah changed that tone completely. She rejected previous agreements that offered development aid as symbolic atonement. Her administration is now demanding a formal apology and direct reparations, not just for the historical record, but for the living descendants of the victims. This isn't just about Germany. It's about drawing a line in the post-colonial sand. Africa, she argues, cannot talk about economic transformation while refusing to address the debts of colonial violence. And nations that profited from the destruction of African societies must be held accountable, not with apologies whispered in boardrooms, but with binding commitments and public truth. Some have dismissed this as idealism, but her demand is precise. She doesn't want charity. She wants restitution. And unlike others, she's not making this a side note. She's putting it at the center of foreign policy. What ties her immigration crackdown and her colonial demands together is simple: dignity. She is building a state that doesn't just control its borders, resources, and economy, but also controls the narrative about who Namibia is and what it will no longer tolerate. But none of this, not the deportations, not the refinery plans, not the political purges, exist in isolation. They're all threads in something larger. Because what Nandi Ndaitwah is building isn't just a policy platform. It's a prototype, one that might redefine what African leadership looks like. And that's exactly where we're going next. What Netumbo Nandi Ndaitwah is building in Namibia doesn't end at her country's borders. It was never meant to. Each decision she's made, from cutting ministries to evicting overstayers, from nationalizing resources to demanding reparations, fits into a broader philosophy that is no longer whispered in side rooms or buried in dusty liberation manifestos. It is Pan-Africanism, reloaded, redefined, and revived. But unlike past rhetoric-heavy iterations of the ideology, Nandi Ndaitwah isn't talking about unity through summits and slogans. She's constructing unity through models, through evidence, through replication. What if an African country could reject foreign dependence and not collapse? What if it could process its minerals, feed its population, and enforce its immigration law and still stand?
What scares these motherfucking these colonialists to death. This is what we've got to hurry up and get this new system up. Damn it. How dare these niggers? That's what they're thinking. Because they realize, hey, the gig is up. it's over. Let me get this man's going down. He knows he's going down. All right, Revelation 12:12. He knows he hath but a short time, and therefore you're getting ready to see these horns. You people just would not listen. Let's see. Restoration of Jacob, taunting Babylon, and the other colonial powers. Let's see. Let me go further down. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. Start at 6. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke. He that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted, and none hindereth. Let's go into that persecuted. All right. Strong's H 4783. I need something a little bit more than that. Let's go to my, let's see. Yeah, I need the verb. To pursue in a manner to injure, grieve, or afflict. And he's feeling that way. Oh, poor little thing. He's not getting his way. And I'm talking about these European nations that have been so used to having their way with the ones they consider so beneath them. To beset with cruelty or malignity, to harass, especially to afflict, harass, punish. Yeah, they fear that righteous punishment, but that's coming regardless. All right. True justice. All right. All right, let's see. Cause to suffer. They always got to put that JOO shit in there. Someone who torments. Like I say, it's no fun when the rabbit's got the gun, right? Oh, I just love it. Payback. The big payback, right? Let's see. The whole earth is at, let's see. The whole earth is at rest, and is quiet. They break forth into singing. Yea, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, no fellow has come up against us. Why? Because this same individual, or peoples, is destroying the earth. And we all know what Revelation 11 and 18 says about that, right? All right. It says, 9, hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. It hath raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. All right. All they shall speak and say unto thee, art thou also become weak as we? And you're witnessing the decline of this devil. In fact, Luke 10 and 18, I'll get that as soon as I get through with this. All right. Like I said, he's fallen. All right. Art thou become like unto us? Thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy vows, the worm, all this decay. All right. When you think of, even with the Catholic Church, that's why a lot of Jakes, even with Islam, you know, because Jake is drawn towards that pomp. All right. All the flair, you know, Catholics, you go to the churches, they got all that you know, everybody's decked out, and all that symbolism and shit. And same thing with, you know, with Islam. They got all that, you know, they so rich over there, and Jake is just, oh, okay. Not realizing that, well, better them, right? Thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy vows, the worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee. This whole infrastructure is falling apart. All right, and let's go to that Luke, what I was talking about. 10, and this is Yahushua talking to the disciples, and he said unto them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven. He's falling from his rulership. It's over. All right, but that's when the bad shit begins, because, as I often say, we know the atrocities that he committed and his don't give a fuck attitude, how he, as to while he was establishing everything. All right. So my question is, what do you think he's going to do to try to keep it? This is where Daniel 12:1 and even Isaiah 13 chapter comes into play. And there are some other scriptures, but those two just come to the forefront of my mind right now. All right. Because and you're seeing the beginnings of that here now. There's reasons that others, let's just say they have dual citizenship, they're going to be getting the fuck up out of here because they're seeing, all right, hey, America is on some bullshit now. It's not going to get any worse. I mean, it's not going to get any better. It's going to get worse.
And still stand. To answer those questions, she's turning Namibia into a working case study. Her agricultural overhaul is one such example. Rather than importing food from former colonizers, her administration has initiated the development of large-scale super farms designed to supply the nation internally and cut food imports by 80% before the end of the decade. These aren't legacy projects. They're mechanized, tech-enabled zones where youth are...
Ooh-wee. You don't think she not pissing motherfuckers off that are aware of this? They making plans. Oh, we got to get rid of her. We got to do something here because they're all starting to... this is becoming infectious. God damn it.
Trained, employed, and encouraged to see farming not as a tradition, but as a profession. This isn't nostalgia, it's survival reimagined. By transforming agriculture from subsistence to sovereignty, she's sending a message to the continent. You don't need handouts if you control your harvest. And when that message comes from a nation like Namibia, often overlooked in continental debates, it cuts deeper. It tells larger African economies, if we can do it, you have no excuse. The same applies to social development. Nandine Daitwa is investing in sports infrastructure, youth hubs, and cultural revival projects not as distractions, but as core parts of national identity. In a world that has often erased African confidence in its institutions, she's attempting something rare, building trust in the state by building spaces where citizens can grow, compete, and connect. And then, there's the leadership style itself. Unlike many African presidents who surround themselves with loyalists or family members, Nandine Daitwa's cabinet is emerging as a mix of technocrats, women, and grassroots organizers. Her appointment of Lucia Witbui as vice president wasn't just progressive, it was strategic. She's showing that power can be shared without being diluted. That's perhaps her most radical...
That's another thing I didn't mention that earlier on because they say, oh man, it's the president and vice president are women. So you know what they're going to try to do. And like I said, this all sounds so good. But we shall see.
Act, redefining what leadership looks like in a continent often trapped between military rulers and donor darlings. She doesn't shout, she doesn't beg, and she doesn't wait for foreign validation. She just moves, and every move echoes beyond Windhoek. Leaders in West Africa are watching. Reformists in East Africa are taking notes. Civil societies in the Sahel are citing her speeches. Because deep down, everyone on this continent knows, if one nation can pull it off, it breaks the myth that none can. And maybe that's why her presidency feels different. Not because she's the first woman, but because she's treating that moment not as symbolism, but as a starting point for something continental in scale. She isn't just governing Namibia. She's building a mirror, one that dares Africa to look at itself and finally recognize its power. While much of the world was still reacting to her domestic shakeups, Netumbo Nandine Daitwa was already recalibrating Namibia's position on the global chessboard, not through loud provocations, but through subtle shifts in diplomatic tone and strategy. Namibia, under past administrations, had taken on the role that many post-colonial African nations assumed, the cautious negotiator. Always polite, always thankful, always deferential. But Nandine Daitwa has ushered in a new language, one that blends assertiveness with precision and gratitude with boundaries. In multilateral spaces, her...
See, and this reminds me, too, of the situation with Deborah, all right? Deborah, all right? And, in the case of you men ain't standing up, guess what? There you go. Hey, so with that, it's only like a minute or something left. But yeah, like I said, this looks and sounds so good. But you know they're gunning for her. We gotta stop this. We gotta nip this, nip it in the bud. All right. So with that, hey, until the next video, shalom.